Hey, what's going on guys? My name is KarQ, and today we'll be covering how to defend and position yourself on Hollywood. This is the second map covered under my defending series of the hybrid maps, so if you're not interested in Hollywood and want to see the others, they should be linked in the description and should also pop up on the top right of the video. Now, like I've said before, this is my opinion on what seems to work as of Season 3 in Grandmaster games. There will always be variations and team comp specific setups, but for the most part, this video will serve as a general guideline on strong hero choices for this map and how to strategically optimize your defenses. So let's get the ball rolling on point A. Now, out of all the hybrid maps, I find Numbani the hardest to defend because of 4 angles of attack, and Hollywood next due to having 3 to 4 angles to look out for as well.
But Uncle KarQ, where did you get 3 or 4 angles of attack when there's only 2? Arches and security.
Well, you see, little Johnny, what happens on Hollywood is that most teams have a typical setup right here in front of the point, with Reinhardt holding the fort down. The rest of your team should usually opt to play behind the Rhine or around the point. Therefore, this gives the enemy 2 primary options mentioned earlier, head on from arches, security room, and 2 secondary options, the stairs to balcony and around the back through the alley.
But Uncle KarQ, why would you give them more options to attack you from? Why not just hold them at arches and security through the balcony?
Good question, little Johnny. The reason why most teams hold in front of the point near Reinhardt is because it shortens the enemy's line of sight and gives your team a lot of cover with the payload, box, and cafe. If your team were to hold the arches and balcony, you create opportunities for Widowmakers to snipe you and Roadhogs to freely hook you. Moreover, your line of sight on balcony is limited to just archway. A simple Lucio speed boost from the attacking team towards the point, stairs, or alleyway completely nullifies this high ground advantage, forcing you to either retreat or forcing you to move up a little bit to get a better shooting angle. Of course, if you take that option, it doesn't come without a risk. The moment you move up, you expose yourself and can be freely damaged without cover, or in worst cases, hooked by the Roadhog. So with that being said, let's go over some good heroes to play on defense here and where they should be optimally positioned. Like I mentioned earlier, Reinhardt is your bread and butter in protecting everyone on low ground behind the point. So playing behind the Reinhardt can be a Roadhog, who should be pressuring the enemy Rhine shield and looking for hooks. If your defending Reinhardt is losing the shield battle and is falling back, a common secondary position for Roadhog is to now play as a flanker. So what happens here is most hogs actually sneak up the stairs onto balcony and look for a flank hook onto the attacking team's support. Another great hero on defense is Zarya. She usually plays behind the Rhine, managing her bubbles for energy during the Reinhardt standoff and potentially saving any teammates from being hooked by enemy hogs. Now for some alternative heroes in the off-tank slot, one of the choices is Mei, who can wall off the security and arches, punishing isolated enemies. Another hero that can be played is Torbjorn. Yes, Torb, and he's actually quite good on Hollywood in my opinion. Setting up in the darkroom entrance with this turret allows him to cover the point and pressure enemies to turn their focus on him. Another good spot is behind the stairs beside the plant, giving good coverage of the point and camouflage for his turret. Now if you decide not to opt for off tanks, you can go back to the old-fashioned 2-2-2 comp, picking up another DPS, especially since D.Va received a recent nerf. In one of these slots, you can play McCree. He's strongest behind the Rhine shield or payload because it allows him to stay within his effective range of flashbang while keeping an eye on security and keeping enemies within his normal damage of 70. For the DPS slot, this should be taken by Soldier 76. Commonly played at the top of cafe, Soldier is still the jack of all trades. He can watch all angles of attack, the direct Reinhardt confrontation through arches, security, top of balcony, stairs, and the back alley. This is probably Soldier's best position to play in at all times because it gives him the best tactical visor angle. His biotic field is also useful for healing up his partner in crime, Ana, the other support that is still a very core hero choice despite the recent patch. Anas will typically play at the top of cafe beside Soldier, moving downstairs to the health pack to top herself off or wait for the Soldier biotic field. If you play Ana, discipline yourself to not use Biotic Grenade on yourself if you take some damage here, unless absolutely necessary. If the enemies begin pushing past Ryan's holding position, I recommend backing off to the right side behind box and stairs to create a better healing angle with good cover. If you stay on the top of cafe during an enemy push, you actually have a very bad Bionade angle, both offensively and defensively if they fight you on the cafe side of the payload. And finally, the last hero choice for Hollywood Point A is just another support slot, taken by the choice of Lucio, Zenyatta, or Symmetra, all of which are completely viable on this map. If you opt for Lucio, he typically plays on and around the payload, dancing around with his auras up and booping enemies entering the point in order to disrupt them. There's not much to say about Lucio, so let's move on to Zenyatta. If you opt for Zenyatta, he can be played on the point using the payload as cover or at the top of cafe. If you opt for Symmetra, she typically plays around the payload as well for cover, using secondary fires through the arches to quickly build up the teleporter or shield generator. Both options for ultimates are fine on this map because the respawn distance for defenders is not that far compared to 2 CP maps. Well, if the enemies manage to take point A, let's move on to the payload street phase of Hollywood. It's important to familiarize yourself with a few of the callouts here, so let's go over them real quick. bank, saloon, and jail. Use the words upper or lower to indicate if they're on the ground floor or the second level of these buildings, using landmarks as well to indicate more precise locations. For example, let's use bank here. This would be called bank elevator, bank health pack, bank lower, bank upper, and bank roof. So defending the street phase for Hollywood isn't too bad for defenders. They have a variety of buildings to use for high ground advantage. Typically, I see defending teams begin the street phase by attempting to slow the payload down and initiating fights around this section of the map. Why? This spot has the best control in holding the attackers right around the entrance of the gate and cafe, with their only option of flanking through the dark room or to the back of the bank. I usually see teams having their Reinhardt hold here, an off tank here, and a third tank, or even now a long-range DPS such as McCree play around the Rhine shield. Torbjorn and Mei are typically not played as often during the street phase, although they are still played at times. Soldier and Ana usually play at the top of the saloon because it's a great spot for the tactical visor and nano boost combo, using this mini wall as cover, and can also easily spot anyone on the bank roof if somehow an enemy snuck up the elevator there. The final support slot, Lucio and Zenyatta typically play behind the Rhine shield, with Lucio dancing around as usual or Zenyatta spamming his primary fire and discords. Honestly, I guess the bottom line here for the street phase of Hollywood is high ground. The most important thing is to prevent the enemy from gaining the high ground advantage on you at bank, or else you'll likely be wiped. If the attacking team wins the fight around this spot, the next fight during the street phase typically happens around the corner of the saloon. Defending teams begin respawning and start battling back, using the jail and dumpster as cover. It is extremely hard to defend this section if the attacking team has momentum from winning the previous fight. If the attacking team is playing this correctly, they would have sent a few of their teammates to the top of saloon, pressuring this little door that the defenders typically come out of. I don't really have a set positioning guide here for you, except do your best to win this fight. It might be ideal to send some quick flankers such as Tracer at the side exit to flank the enemy's backline. If you do end up winning the fight here as a defending team, the tide of the battle will swing back into your favor because the respawn distances now favor the defending team. The attacking team has to pass through the cafe and go all the way through the street to the payload. Now onto the final checkpoint of Hollywood. As the defenders, you typically let the payload move until the enemy is around the corner. From here, have your Reinhardt play the payload and your off tanks or another DPS around the Reinhardt. Play Soldier up top using the high ground and doorway for cover, and Ana near the checkpoint, and Lucio a little bit behind the Rhine. Or if you run Zenyatta, he can play with Ana because of no damage drop off and consistent pressure with his primary fire and discords. It's also important to note that if you have a Zen here, definitely stay out of the enemy's Graviton and Earth Shatter so you can counter with Transcendence. If the enemy wins the fight, the final phase is just a complete mess. There really is no ideal position. The defenders are actually at a respawn advantage, and you would typically just pop at a spawn and do your best to stall the enemy's final push. Every kill as a defender, even a 1-for-1, is more valuable for the defending side due to that respawn distance. Remember to prioritize their Ana because a dead Ana stops the final attacking push 90% of the time due to no strong burst heals. And that's all I've got for Hollywood, my friends. Hopefully this guide gave you a better understanding of where to play certain heroes along with why they're strong and useful there. This is what seems to be popular and what works in Grandmaster, so hopefully it works for you too. As always, my name is KarQ. I hope you guys earned some SR, and I'll see you in the next video.